I am going to show you how to make this full cap crochet wig with no leave out. So pretty. It was so easy to make. Here is the start of the show. I used 2 packs of ringlet wand curl in color number T30. And here is the cap, my new favorite cap. Highly recommend, because you are able to sew hair. You can sew hair, child. You can crochet hair on the entire cap over the elastic band. So highly recommend. I do like to get rid of that lace. It's not required, but I don't like to have to work around it, so I do remove it. If you decide to remove that lace when you make yours as well, be sure to reinforce the ends. You don't want your wig cap to unravel. You can either stitch the wig cap back together by holding it like I'm doing here, or you can put it back on your wig block. I find it easier to put it back on the wig block. That way you know it's going to be sewn back together evenly. And I sew back and then I come forward, and then you tie it off and you're good. Use your stick pins to secure your wig cap onto your wig block. That way it will stay in place while you're working. I use 3 in the back, 2 in the front, and at least 2 on each side. Since this is going to be a full cap wig with no leave out, we're going to have to close the wig off on top. I like to use a stick pin to mark where my closure will be, where I'm going to close the wig off at. And once we reach the top, we will crochet the hair around that stick pin. I did separate the hair 3 times for the back. This hair is so easy to work with. I didn't have any issues separating the hair. And y'all know my favorite latch hook is the smaller one. And I will have everything linked below that you will need to make your wig. So the one thing that was hard for me when I first started making crochet wigs was figuring out how much hair to use in the back. And I kept using too much hair. I would run out of hair. The back would be so full and it would look so crazy, and the wig would be so heavy. So if you only get one thing out of this video, please know and understand you want to be stingy in the back. Space the hair out, and you can always go back and add more hair if you feel the need. And I did go back and add more, and we'll talk about that in a few. But it really depends on the shape you're going for when it comes to the ringlet wand curl, because the hair is short. If you don't use enough hair in the back, you will have to cut it. That way it doesn't look super thin. But if you want a full look and you want to leave it as long as possible, you'll need to add more hair. And that's why I added more hair, because I wanted to leave it long. So it's so hard for me to explain this part. When you get to your next row, you want to place your piece of hair between 2 pieces on the previous row, like the bricklayer method. So that's all I'm doing here. And I'm still spacing the hair out. So that first row sets the tone. If you have 4 pieces, you'll have 3 pieces on the next row. If you have 5 pieces, you'll have 4 on the next row. So here is how we are looking. You can crochet the hair closer to your guide if you want to, but we are going to move on to the sides. So I am adding this wig to my website, and I had to create a system to make sure all of the wigs were made the same way. And I recommend you do the same thing when you do your sides, what I'm doing now, because you want both sides of the wig to have the same amount of hair. You don't want one side to be fuller than the other. So I went back and forth. I did 2 rows on one side, and then I went to the other side and did the same amount using the same amount of hair. I hope that made sense. So I went back and forth. Whatever I did on one side, I went to the other side and did the same thing. And since I knew I wanted to leave this wig as long as possible, I did use a lot, not a lot, but I placed the hair close together on that elastic band. So I have 2 rows of hair. And still had to end up adding more, but I wasn't sure. So we just did 2 rows. And just go in, that's how it's looking. And just go in and fill in those holes. And whatever I did on one side, I went to the other side and did the same thing. Okay, and here is how we are looking. Now we are going to work on the front of the wig. And let me tell y'all what I started doing. Well, lies, we're not working on the front of the wig. We're still pulling in the back. When you get to this part of the wig, like right before the crown, you want to place the hair closer together. And I did use smaller pieces. But if you want that volume on top, if you want your wig to be super full, use bigger pieces. It's personal preference. So for the front, what I do is I do the knotless method. Is it knotless method or knotless technique? Girl, I put it on the screen, but y'all know what I'm talking about. I do the knotless method for the entire front. The reason why, and I use smaller pieces. So the reason why I do the knotless method is because I get 2 pieces. I'm able to make the front full without it being bulky. My goal is to cover up that cap and to make it full without the wig being bulky. I want the person who purchases this wig to be able to move the hair however they want without being able to see the cap and those knots. And that's how it's looking. So I'm placing the hair close together as well. So I'm using smaller pieces and I'm placing the hair as close together as possible. Pretty much going through every other hole, if not every hole on the cap. And with the knotless method, oh, hold on, I'm going to show you right here. All you're doing is pulling one piece through instead of both. Just like that, and then you'll have 2 pieces. So instead of one piece, you have those 2, and it's going to help you cover up that cap. And this is the front, and that's what I'm doing, the knotless method for all of them. And this is the part of the wig making process that takes the longest, closing up the top, because I'm using smaller pieces and I'm crocheting hair in just about every hole. I don't like the knots at all, so I want to make sure those are covered up. And I do the knotless method at the very top as well, even for the hair that's not going to go towards the front of the wig. And that is where our stick pin was, and you just keep crocheting hair until you see no more of that cap. Alrighty, and here she is. She is completely done. We are going to add more hair though at the bottom to change the shape. So Hawaiian Silky, I highly recommend. This will be your best friend with crochet braids. I used it to clump the curls back together, get rid of that frizz, and to remove any of the shed hair that did not go through the cap while crocheting. Before you cut, make sure your wig is on straight and use the combs as your guide. You want to make sure it's completely on your head too. So if you cut it while it's on your head, which I recommend, if you're making a wig for yourself, cut it while it's on your head. And wherever you think you want to cut, go down a bit further. I would rather for it to be too long than too short because you'll have to take that hair out and replace it.
I don't like the shape of the wig. It's like it's going at an angle, like a triangle, and I don't want that. I want it to be full all the way down. So I am going to lift it up and add some hair around there to make it fuller.
If you decide to add more hair to your wig, just to make sure whatever you do on one side, you do on the other side. After a little trim, here is the final look. This wig is available to purchase. The link to do so is below. Let me know if y'all have questions. I'm more than happy to answer. If you enjoyed this video, I am sure you will enjoy this one. Love y'all.
I'm gonna